have told. I've told Papoose. I told them, why don't you tell us that? Why don't you tell,
Y'all, this didn't just leak. This detonated. What you're about to hear isn't another messy rumor. It's a full-scale collapse of loyalty, image, and everything people thought was real. Because behind the smiles, behind the power couple narrative, something darker was quietly unfolding, and now it's breaking out all at once. For weeks, the internet thought it was just noise, just trolling, just another back and forth. But then the tone shifted. Names started aligning. Timelines stopped making sense. And suddenly, the story wasn't about speculation anymore. It was about exposure. Because now, insiders are pointing to a moment where everything snapped. A private confrontation, cold words, calculated pain, and at the center of it all, Remy Ma, stepping in not to defend but to dismantle. While Papoose was out here standing 10 toes down, believing in something solid, another narrative was already moving behind his back. Quiet, strategic, untouchable until it wasn't. And when 50 Cent dropped that spark, it didn't just start drama, it exposed a chain reaction nobody could control. Now the question isn't what happened, it's how long it was happening, and who knew the truth all along.
people would cry if they knew the truth. Like, literally cry. Like, cry. Cry.
You remember this? Remember she was on FaceTime with you? Remember this? Where I'm at? At the house. So we gonna play this game. Yeah. Shaking my head. You know, from the streets. Thought she was singing with you, man. You really thought she was singing with him. Stop playing, man. I'm gonna keep releasing.
What made the situation spiral wasn't just what was said in public, it was what allegedly happened behind closed doors that nobody was supposed to see. Because after that initial spark lit by 50 Cent, the narrative didn't slow down, it fractured. And in that fracture, pieces started slipping out that painted a completely different picture than what fans had been sold for months. On the surface, everything looked locked in. Papoose was still moving like a man standing firmly behind his partner. Public appearances, subtle support, controlled silence. It all gave the impression that whatever noise was circulating online didn't matter. But behind that image, the timing wasn't lining up. Because insiders began pointing to moments, small at first, almost unnoticeable, where things didn't quite match the narrative. Gaps in visibility. Unexplained absences. Energy shifts in interviews that didn't feel consistent with someone in a stable situation. At the time, nobody questioned it. Now, those same moments are being replayed like evidence. And right in the middle of those gaps, another presence allegedly started becoming more consistent. Not loud, not obvious, but there, repeatedly, quietly moving through the same spaces, the same environments, the same private settings connected to Claressa Shields. That presence, Maserati Bud, wasn't supposed to become part of the story. But once his name surfaced, everything shifted. Because this wasn't just about being seen once. This was about access. The kind of access that doesn't happen randomly. The kind that builds over time. Private environments. Closed-door moments. Situations that don't make it to social media unless something goes wrong. And according to what's now circulating, something did go wrong. Because instead of fading into the background, Maserati Bud allegedly stepped forward and didn't just deny the rumors, he leaned into them. He described familiarity, repeated interaction, time spent in spaces that most people never get near. That's when the internet stopped treating this like gossip and started treating it like a pattern.
Stop dealing with who I was dealing with. The fuck with you. You like, oh, get them up. And then, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't finna give them up for you. That's what you really mad about, because I wouldn't give him up for you. And you felt like, oh, I'm the heavyweight champion. I don't care, I'm loyal to who I'm loyal to. If you weren't trying to get down with the party, I told you one night.
A pattern that raised one uncomfortable question after another. Where was Papoose during these moments? And more importantly, what did he actually know? Because while all of this was allegedly unfolding in private, his public image never shifted. He stayed consistent, supportive, present in the narrative that fans believed was real. But now that same consistency is being reinterpreted in a completely different way. Not as strength, but as possible unawareness. Or worse, selective blindness. And that's where the emotional weight of this story starts to hit. Because if even part of these claims hold truth, then what people were watching wasn't just a relationship, it was a controlled image. One side fully invested in what they believed was real, while another reality was developing just out of sight. Meanwhile, Remy Ma re-entering the narrative changed everything. Because unlike the others, her position in this situation isn't neutral. It's personal, history, loyalty, betrayal, all tied into one unresolved storyline that never fully disappeared. And when she allegedly stepped into that private moment and confronted Papoose, it didn't feel like reaction. It felt like recognition. Like someone watching a cycle repeat itself in real time.
What's that? See, I've been trying to spare you, Claressa. Even when motherfucking Geisha 305 put that shit up there, I told her to take that shit down. But since you want to play with a real... See, I'm from the crib. I'm from Miami, right? And real, we don't talk about what we do and how we do shit, right? But me and my dog 5 was already on the phone before I even talked to you. He told me that, man, boy, just play, man, just dumb that shit down. That's why I said my dog Petty Jackson. Because he told me to play it like that. And I wasn't play it like that. Play dumb. And I wasn't going to respond. I don't even play with the internet. But since you want to record phone calls, guess what? I'm finna release all this footage. Yeah, that's right. I said I'm finna release the footage, man. Yeah. On Christmas, I was inside the crib. When you was on FaceTime, Papoose, I got the video. When she FaceTiming you, guess what? I'm sitting right there in the living room at the same chair that I helped her get for her homewarming gift. That bed.
Her words, sharp, calculated, emotionally controlled, didn't just address what was happening now. They pointed backward, to choices, to decisions that had already reshaped everything long before this moment exploded publicly. And suddenly, this wasn't just about Claressa anymore. It became about consequences. Because now the narrative isn't asking if something happened. It's asking how long it's been happening, and who was the last to realize it. At the same time, Claressa Shields continues to push back publicly, maintaining control of her side of the story. Denials, clarifications, framing everything as exaggeration or manipulation. But in situations like this, control doesn't always come from what's said. It comes from what people believe. And right now, belief is shifting. Because the deeper the story goes, the less it feels like coincidence, and the more it starts to look like something that was always there, just hidden well enough to avoid attention. Until now.
He's not even speaking on nothing over there. He just letting motherfuckers do this all day. I ain't gonna say nothing, but I'm gonna let this one say whatever. And pray that Rem not gonna say nothing to refute it. Nah, them days is fucking over. You don't get that grace from me anymore.
No, because Claressa, what happened, honey? I thought you was Papoose crazy. Like, what happened, girl? So have y'all been seeing all these recordings and videos and different stuff going around about Papoose? And
what happens next is where the story stops feeling like drama and starts feeling like exposure. Because once those alleged private details began circulating, the internet didn't just react. It went into investigation mode. Old clips resurfaced. Interviews were dissected frame by frame. Background figures, body language, tone shifts, everything suddenly mattered. And the deeper people looked, the more the narrative started bending. Not breaking, bending. Because there were moments, subtle, almost forgettable at the time, where Claressa Shields seemed slightly off. A pause that lasted too long. A response that felt rehearsed. Energy that didn't match the situation. Back then, it passed. Now, it's being reanalyzed like evidence. At the same time, Maserati Bud's alleged statements kept circulating, and instead of fading, they grew louder. More detailed. More specific. He didn't just claim proximity, he described presence. Repeated presence. Environments that felt too personal to dismiss. And that's when the conversation shifted from, is this true, to, why does this sound consistent? Because consistency is what turns rumors into something harder to ignore. Meanwhile, Papoose remained almost completely silent. No direct shutdown, an aggressive denial, an visible attempt to reclaim control of the narrative. And in situations like this, silence doesn't protect, it amplifies. Because every hour without a response gave the internet more space to build its own version of the truth. A version where his loyalty started to look one-sided. Where his public support began to feel disconnected from what might have been happening privately. And that's where the emotional imbalance became impossible to ignore. Because if the timeline being pieced together is even partially accurate, then this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was overlap. Moments where one reality existed publicly, while another played out quietly in the background.
That boy Pap is something serious, okay? He deserved every diss anybody gives to his ass. I mean that. He deserved every diss. Every diss that he deserved it. For real. Yeah. It's time to get in the booth, buddy. Everybody done dished it. Time to get in the booth. She got hit by all 5 guys and didn't even bring a burger back.
And overlap changes everything, because it suggests awareness on one side and absence on the other. It suggests that while one person was standing firmly in the spotlight, another narrative was already moving behind the scenes, untouched, uninterrupted. Then came the pressure point. The internet stopped asking questions and started forming conclusions. Clips of Remy Ma began resurfacing. Older interviews, past comments, subtle remarks that at the time felt emotional, but now feel almost predictive. Lines that once sounded like frustration now sound like warning. And that shift in perception added a whole new layer to the story. Because suddenly, this didn't feel isolated. It felt patterned. Like something that had been building quietly, long before Maserati Bud's name ever entered the conversation. And once that idea took hold, everything intensified. Because patterns are harder to dismiss than incidents. They suggest repetition, behavior, intent. At the same time, Claressa's responses remained controlled, but the tone, according to viewers, began to shift. Still denying, still pushing back, but now under a level of scrutiny that doesn't allow room for missteps. Every word analyzed, every expression questioned, every silence interpreted.
Off a 50 Cent page, I go over there and I see this picture of Claressa Shields and Bud, Maserati Bud. Baby, I remember posting this and she threatened to send me a cease and desist note to take me to court because she said it's a lie. Why would I put that out there that she messed with Maserati Bud? So she must have caught some backlash from Papoose when I posted. So I'm all in the comments leaving my comment and being nosy, and 50 Cent right, no, you just got off the phone with him, don't play with me. Yes, I posted this pic of them the beginning of February 2025, honey. She was about to lose her mind when she seen this pic and video.
And that's the danger of public narrative collapse. You don't just lose control of the story, you lose control of how everything you say is received. Meanwhile, Maserati Bud's position became even more volatile, because he wasn't backing down. If anything, he was leaning further in, hinting at receipts, suggesting there was more that hadn't been seen yet. Videos, footage, moments that could either confirm everything or destroy his credibility completely. And that uncertainty created tension, because now the story isn't just about what's already out there. It's about what could still come out. And that what if is what's holding the entire internet in place right now. Waiting, watching. Because if those alleged receipts ever surface, this doesn't stay speculation. It becomes confirmation. Or collapse. Either way, someone's narrative doesn't survive it. And right now, the most uncomfortable part of this entire situation is this. Nobody has stepped in strong enough to shut it down. Not definitively. Not convincingly. And in a story built on silence, timing, and shifting perception, that absence speaks louder than anything else. And this is the point where everything stops feeling reversible. Because once a narrative reaches this level, where silence, speculation, and alleged receipts are all colliding, there's no clean way out. No statement strong enough to reset perception. No denial powerful enough to erase what people think they've already seen. At this stage, it's no longer about truth. It's about impact. And the impact is already hitting. Because what we're watching now isn't just a situation unfolding. It's a slow, public unraveling of image. The kind that doesn't happen all at once, but piece by piece, layer by layer, until what's left looks nothing like what people believed in the beginning. At the center of that unraveling is Papoose. Not because he's speaking, but because he isn't. His silence has now become the loudest element in the entire story. Every hour without a response adds weight. Every moment without clarity creates space for assumptions to grow stronger, sharper, more defined. And in the absence of his voice, the narrative is being written without him. Some see that silence as restraint. Others see it as shock, but a growing number are starting to see it as something else entirely. A man realizing, in real time, that the version of reality he stood on publicly might not have been complete. And that realization, if true, is where the emotional collapse begins. Because loyalty hits different when it's questioned in public. Especially when the questions don't come all at once, but build slowly, relentlessly, until there's no way to ignore them anymore. At the same time, Claressa Shields remains in position, responding, denying, controlling what she can. But the challenge now isn't just defending against accusations. It's defending against perception. And perception doesn't require proof. It feeds on patterns, on timing, on the feeling that something doesn't quite add up. Right now, that feeling is everywhere. Then there's Remy Ma, the unexpected force in this entire situation. Because her alleged confrontation didn't just add emotion to the story, it reframed it. It took this from a possible misunderstanding and turned it into something that feels like consequence. Like history repeating itself in a different form, under a brighter light. Her words, calculated, direct, cutting, didn't just question what's happening now. They challenged what happened before. And once that door opens, it doesn't close easily. Because now people aren't just looking at this moment. They're looking backward, reanalyzing everything, searching for signs they might have missed. And that kind of retrospective attention is dangerous. Because it turns isolated incidents into connected dots. And connected dots into a narrative that feels impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Maserati Bud remains the wild card. The one element that hasn't settled. Because his alleged claims haven't been fully proven, but they also haven't disappeared. They're hovering, lingering, creating a tension that hasn't been released yet, because the possibility of receipts still exists. And as long as that possibility is alive, this story stays unstable. One drop, one video, one confirmed moment, and everything shifts again. But here's the part that's hitting hardest right now. No one is fully in control anymore. Not the ones denying, not the ones accusing, not even the ones watching. Because once a story reaches this level of public consumption, it stops belonging to the people involved. It belongs to perception. And perception doesn't wait for closure. It builds its own ending. Right now, that ending hasn't been written yet. But the direction? It's getting clearer by the minute. Because whether this turns out to be truth, exaggeration, or something in between, the damage is already in motion. Reputations are shifting, images are cracking, and narratives that once felt solid are now being questioned from every angle. This isn't just drama anymore. This is what happens when private realities and public images collide, and neither one survives the impact the same way. And the most unsettling part? We're not watching the aftermath. We're watching the collapse as it happens. And just when it feels like the story has reached its peak, it doesn't. It tightens. It sharpens. It gets louder in all the ways that matter. Because now, the pressure isn't coming from one side. It's coming from everywhere. Every post, every reaction, every silent moment is adding weight to a situation that's already on the edge. And the longer the truth stays unclear, the more dangerous the narrative becomes. This isn't just about who said what anymore. It's about who loses everything when the dust finally settles. Because if those alleged receipts ever surface, there's no controlling what happens next. One clip could flip the entire story. One leak could confirm every suspicion people have been building for days. And once that line is crossed, there's no walking it back, no rewriting it, no hiding from it. And that's why the silence right now feels so loud. Because somebody knows something. Somebody is waiting. And somebody is about to lose control of the narrative completely. The internet isn't slowing down. It's watching, refreshing, analyzing, pushing for the moment where everything finally breaks open. And when it does, it won't be subtle. It won't be clean. It will be explosive. So now the question isn't if more is coming. It's when. Because in a story built on tension, timing, and hidden truths, the final reveal doesn't just end things. It destroys them. And if you think this is already shocking, you haven't seen what happens next.